The Crucial 30.
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 It's the Crucial 30.
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 Well, hello, world. I hope all is well out there in the United States and beyond. We are here tonight once again for a very, very special panel with our attorneys, our lawyers across this country to talk about your voters' rights. Guys, we have brought out so much content, and you know this is the Crucial 30, and you probably think that I am a little crazy because guess what? We are almost done with 30 straight days of content, and we have saved the best for last. Guys, this will be our last panel for this campaign, but not our last panel ever. However, our lawyers are backstage waiting to tell you some very, very important information and also some very familiar faces if you are from the great and amazing school of Savannah State University and beyond. So we are going to bring them up one by one, as they are going to tell a little bit about themselves before we dive into this crucial conversation. Guys, this is the Narrative Shift, and we are the Crucial 30. All right, one by one, we're going to bring up Stephen Miller first. Stephen Miller, we're gonna bring you up first to discuss exactly who you are and what you represent. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
How you doing, Chelsea?
I'm doing well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Stephen?
Sure. My name's Steve Miller. I am an attorney here in the Metro Atlanta area. I am the managing partner of the Miller firm. We are a virtual boutique firm specializing in personal injury as well as criminal defense.
Awesome. Guys, did you hear that? Atlanta area, criminal defense, attorney, Black male, all of those things are very important. I must say, Stephen, what alumni are you? Where are you from?
It's you.
Savannah State University, stand up. Guys, if you are watching this right now and you are a Tiger, you should be sharing and tuning in. Also, if you are part of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, then guess what? You should also be chiming in, guys. You know, I'm going to do shout outs as we go. So thank you so
all
much.
The loops say yo.
Yes, awesome. I'm going to put you backstage, Stephen, and we will bring up our next guest, Jelani. Hello, Jelani.
What's going on, Chelsea? Great. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Jelani, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, I am, of course, went to Savannah State University. I am a lawyer. I'm not practicing law in the traditional sense like Stephen and Hermes. I am actually working directly with state and local governments. I work for the law department here at City of Atlanta. And so I deal with state, local government laws all the time. I've worked with presidential campaigns, state and local campaigns. So this is up my avenue. So any questions anybody has, I'm here to help.
I love it. And another graduate of Savannah State University.
Absolutely.
I have a saying, and I still say we could get anywhere from here. And
Absolutely.
guys, we have an entire panel of lawyers that graduated from Savannah State University. I have to just throw that out there. HBCU.
I got a little orange and blue, just real quick, just a little something.
I love
it. Not fancy.
Awesome. I'm gonna put you backstage. Thank you so
much for having me.
Next up is Brett. And I am going, hello, Brett.
How are you doing, Chelsea?
I'm doing well, Brett. I love it. I love it. You are on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. I am unfortunately not from Savannah State. I went to University of Wisconsin, go Badgers, Big Ten. But I am an attorney in Massachusetts. I work for Murphy and Rudolph out of Worcester, which is in the central part of the state. I focus primarily on civil litigation, employment law mainly, a lot of discrimination work, and I've done criminal defense as well. And we're moving into family law, and because of the eviction moratorium here in Massachusetts ending, we're also picking up some landlord-tenant for especially our indigent or people who can't pay for attorneys. So we'll be picking up some of those as well.
I love it. I love it. We're just going to go ahead and make you an honorary Tiger, but we understand that you're Big Ten as well. So
thank you.
Our Big Ten colleges out there, we are represented. Guys, we just want you to know if there's any young people on the call right now and tuning in, we want you to understand that guess what? If you aspire to be a lawyer, then you probably want to chime in because you're going to learn a lot today and you too can make it. And so thank you so much, Brett. We're going to put you backstage. And last but not least, we're going to bring up Hermise Pierre. Hello, Hermise.
Hi, Chelsea, I should say.
And you call me Chelsea on national. Okay. All right. Well, I am Chelsea Hermise and also Chelsea, but all good. Hello, Hermise. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I am a Savannah State Tiger. I am the principal attorney at the Pierre Law Firm, where we provide legal representation to family-centered individuals who need help with family law matters as well as personal injury. A fun fact is that during law school at Vermont Law School, I studied Spanish constitutional law, where I was able to travel to Spain to compare their constitution with our constitution in the United States.
I love it. I love it. And also a Savannah State University graduate.
That's
and
right.
I must say, you missed a very, very important part of yourself as well, Hermise.
Oh, what could that be?
What could that be? Are you a part of the wonderful organization of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated as well?
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I love it. My Sarah, and also my line sister. And one last thing, guys, you might not know this, but Hermise Pierre is also on the board of the Narrative Shift and also over our protection division. She's the director of protection. And so her value here is hats off. We have one of our teammates from the Narrative Shift on our panel tonight as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are going to bring up the rest of the panelists. Are you ready?
Yes, we are ready. Let's talk.
We are ready. And we are ready to talk and dive in. World, if you are not ready, you are going to need to get ready because guess what? We are really looking at just voters' rights awareness. And so let's start. When we're thinking about just voters' rights, and there are many, many marginalized groups throughout history. There's women, there's people of color, and the list goes on and on. What is the history, and how does this impact us now?
Well, thanks so much, Chelsea. I think I'm going to kick this off. My grandfather was a history professor, and I just love history. So as most people know, the U.S. broke away from England, and they followed their laws, providing only landed gentry or landed people, white men with land, with property, who owned property, the right to vote. That left out people of color, that left out all women. In the 1820s or 30s in the U.S., some states most states had expanded that to all white men, whether or not they owned property. Two major movements that we have expanded the voting rights in the U.S., one being the suffragette movement, providing the women the right to vote. And that's where you came out with the white frocks and the white pantsuit as it is used today, and the civil rights movement of the 40s and 50s. The civil rights movement really started in Seneca Falls, New York, with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. By August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment provided all women the right to vote in all elections. The civil rights movement really began with the 15th Amendment and at the end of the Civil War, providing men, all Black men, with the right to vote. During Reconstruction and shortly into the early 20th century, we saw those voting rights diminished by things such as the poll tax, meaning when you got to the polls, you had to pay money. A lot of people didn't have money. Or literacy tests, meaning you had to prove that you could read something, or recitation or fully reciting the U.S. Constitution. And even as an attorney right now in the 21st century, I'm going to let you know, I cannot recite the entire Constitution, or probably even one of the full amendments. So those bars really came down with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In 1964, the 24th Amendment made poll taxes illegal. I want you to remember poll taxes because I think that Hermes will touch on this a little bit later regarding felons. So now, who has the right to vote? Everyone does, with some stars, some caveats. Most states bar felons, anyone with a felony record, anyone incarcerated from voting. Guam, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia, anyone who is living in those three places are full U.S. citizens, but they do not have the right to vote. They're in Guam and Puerto Rico, which are U.S. territories, they pay taxes just like you and me, but they have no representation either in Congress, the Senate, or the House of Representatives, and they cannot vote for president. I don't know if anyone saw the Democratic National Convention, but one of those territories actually, I believe it was Guam, actually said, go out and vote because we can't during for the presidential election. That's in a couple of days.
Yeah. Definitely. And I just wonder, just, you know, when you're thinking about just that history of just the women, the people of color, the having to take tests, guys, do you realize how much and how far we have come from marginalized groups of people? And when we say marginalized, we don't think about it from a standpoint of just an ethnicity. We're looking at it from gender. We're looking at it from regional. We're looking at it from states. We're looking at it even from electoral college votes. And so, just thinking through that, how has that impact, how has that impact just so many, even beyond that, from a standpoint, from each one of your states, especially just coming from even Georgia as being in the middle of the civil rights unit and everything.
Oh, Stephen, you're muted.
Steve, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I would say that what we've seen kind of throughout the years is that there's always been this constant push to marginalize different people. Like you were saying, whether it's on the race, whether it's on creed, color, whatever it could be on. But one thing that we're starting to see a lot is which is odd for the U.S., is on classes, where you see where the poor are being disenfranchised, and there's this push to put to make it even harder for those that are in certain areas to be able to vote. And I think that's one of the important reasons why you need to get out and actually vote, is to make sure that you have a voice to change this kind of narrative of what's going on, where they're trying to suppress, just based off of your class, which is, certainly not what the founding, well, I don't know. but I was going to say what the founder fathers were thinking of. But if we go through the kind of the list of how voting has come along, we see that there's been a lot of much needed changes, because what's obvious has always been kind of put down and changed in many ways.
And even with that knowledge, what we as American citizens have to be mindful is that because of the landmark decision in 2013, Shelby County versus Holder, the Supreme Court ruled that Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was held unconstitutional. So what does that mean? It means that states and local municipalities can change their election laws without federal review from Congress. So you have to really be mindful and to know what is going on with your election laws to see what procedures has been amended, what procedures has been ratified, so that way you are well prepared to make whatever changes that are necessary. So that's also an important factor that American citizens should consider during any election, whether it be the general election, which what we're preparing for now, or the primary election.
Exactly.
And actually, in that decision, just being a law geek, Justice Ginsburg said possibly the best line I've ever heard or read in a dissent or even in an opinion by any judge. And she said that getting rid of what Hermes was just talking about, called pre-clearance checking, to make sure that the voting rights, that the laws in historically in areas that historically repressed votes, especially for people of color, that check with the federal government, hey, are we still discriminating against people? She said that basically gutting the 1965 Voting Rights Act was, quote, throwing out pre-clearance when it had worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. Meaning it's still happening.
Yep, absolutely. Still happening.
And really quickly to address even your question is, how does it impact the now? I want to add a little more. Is I think what we see right now is really awesome because of people's access to information and people's access to being able to tell in each municipality, state, local government, you know, if you need a videotape, whatever else, hey, this is what's going on. We are dealing with a generation of people who I think are more politically aware. So they are able to voice their opinions more and make a more educated decision now than I think, you know, people were, you know, our generation was growing up just simply because of access to information. So, you know, our history is grim. It's, you know, we have a lot of work to do. But I think the impact of where it is now is good because it's, you know, making people get out and become more active.
No,
not only the activity that and the knowledge that people have, but going back to what Stephen was saying and tying that in is that people are very active. They want to be front and center and going to the polls to, you know, vote. And the problem is, just like Steve said, is that states and local municipalities are putting in laws such as different ID laws, or as we saw in Georgia, wiping I think 124,000 voters off of the registration, off of the registered voters list because they hadn't voted within a year, 2 years, 5 years. I don't remember what Georgia said, but I believe that Texas has put in only a restriction of only one ballot box, one drop-off ballot box in a county. And I don't know if, I mean, Chelsea, can you tell me how big
we can't endorse any candidate, but I can call out some unethical practices, and so I will probably take this little section right here and send it out to our governor of Texas, and everyone else. I do this a lot. I'm speaking to you. What you did as far as saying that only one ballot box can go into any county was dead wrong. You need to reevaluate what you are doing and how you are continuing to suppress the vote in America. So yes, I do that all the time. I got that from Vice President Joe Biden, how he just speaks to the people sometimes. So, shout out to Vice President Joe Biden for speaking exactly to the camera of what you want next. So, just thinking through that and just thinking through just how many decisions are being made by these votes. We have 3 branches of the government. And so how does our vote impact all of those 3 of those branches? And then also just thinking through, we just got a new Supreme Court justice. And so how did our vote even 4 years ago impact that, guys?
I'll explain the 3 branches of government.
Okay.
And I'm going to reserve my comments.
Take it back to civics.
I'm going to take you guys back to civics. So we have 3 branches of government. We have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative. Executive, of course, is the president. The president proposes some policies. The president is over immigration. So when it comes to immigration reform, that is all the president, that is all the executive branch. The judicial, they interpret the laws as well as enforce the laws. When we have the legislative in the federal government, you have the House and you also have the Senate. Now, when it comes to how does it all make sense, right? Because we know that the legislative branch is the branch that makes the laws. Like our stimulus packages, that's legislative. Our education system, legislative. So when you look at your ballot, you voting for the president, you will have other positions for your local. Let me take it back. So with state, you have your governor. With local, you have your mayor. You have your county commissioners. So you would want to take a look at everyone to see how would that impact your views. So first, you have to know what is important for you. What policies are important for you? What, for example, is our environment important to you? And create a list of what is important to you so that when you go and vote, you find a candidate that matches your ideals, your morals, your values, and who would be an advocate for the things that you want to see done in your community.
No, definitely. I think that is so powerful. So powerful. I mean, and I think that you're getting all this noise from every which way, everyone, and you're hearing and you're seeing all of these candidates and they're saying things, but sometimes you have to do your own research. You have to understand what is important to you, just like Hermes said. What else do you guys have to say about just these 3 branches and how it impacts our votes?
So I want to say really quickly that while we have a lot of these major conversations every 4 years because of the presidency, people have to understand that when you have your local elections, a lot of times those can perhaps be more vital to your everyday living than, and not to, lessen one or the other, but then what goes on every 4 years, so it is very important that on the local level, when you're dealing with your House of Representatives, a lot of the legislative branch, with the House of Representatives, your senators, that you engage with them, you send your letters to them if you have your concerns. When it comes down to your judges, you see who they are appointing in these positions. You become more active in your local everyday government, because that's what really affects your everyday going out. Who's the police chief? Who's the the mayor, or whoever, but these people make those decisions that really impact your life. So it's important to be very knowledgeable every 4 years, but when it comes down to those local elections, make sure you're involved. These people, you can pick up your phone, call them if anything happens. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are there. They are there to help you.
Jelani, going off of that, in Massachusetts, where I live, we elect our DA, our district attorney.
Wow.
Now, those are that is the person who sets the policies for when you go into court, what happens. And in some jurisdictions, jurisdiction is just an area. Some areas there are judges who are elected, and in other areas they're appointed by the governor who you elect. So every time you vote, even if it's this small little thing that just, for something that is just impactful for your area, for your town, it's still going to impact the greater, wider area because it magnifies up to the top. And going back to what Hermes had said, and Chelsea, what you had said about why did our vote 4 years ago so impact, the most important court in this land, the Supreme Court of the United States, or SCOTUS, it's because this president was able to appoint and confirm not one, not two, but three justices of that Supreme Court. Those people are there for life. There are no term limits for SCOTUS justices. So if you think that your vote doesn't count every 4 years, or like Jelani said, every 1 year or every 6 months, however often your local elections are, they are extremely important every single time.
Right.
Do you hear that? Your vote counts every single time. Guys, we cannot continue the narrative that we only show up every 4 years. Or we can't continue the narrative, and I'm talking to my African-American folks out there, we can't continue the narrative that we only show up when someone African-American is running for the top office. We can't continue to do that. We need to be out in the lines voting every single time a vote is able to be passed. That is why it's important. And don't ever allow somebody to tell you that your vote doesn't count. And so just thinking about just voting in general, Brett, you brought up Texas and how we have this one ballot box thing going on. And you have a lot of our elderly that are mailing, by mail, like my 92-year-old grandfather. And so I just wonder, what can somebody expect when voting by mail? What can someone expect when they actually cast their ballot button, even if they wait until November 3rd?
So I can touch on it. I don't know if you're talking to Brett or not. That's a no. So voting by mail is one of those things that has it's become a big topic of discussion, especially this election cycle for 2020. A lot of that is due to the current status of the U.S. The reason we're on this Zoom call instead of live in the studio, the coronavirus. The other is that the president has made it one of his priorities to try to somehow make it less effective by voting by mail. And so one thing to remember is that every state's absentee voting rules are different. So you have to contact your local state election board by phone. There's also different websites that you can go to get the specifics about voting and eligibility for your specific state. The most important fact is to request your mail-in ballot early and return it early. There's a candidate that has, like I said, Trump has an extreme opposition to the mail-in voting process. And because of this, he's also filed several lawsuits in several states, including Pennsylvania, Iowa, Nevada, New Jersey, Montana. That's just to name a few. And that's the reason he's filed this is based on plans to make it, these states have plans to make it easier to allow voters to cast their ballots by mail. Some states will even have candidates like the actual voters' names on the ballot. And there's just rules that they're, for some reason, they feel like this is, they shouldn't be able to do this. Here in Georgia, there was a lawsuit on whether the burden of voters paying for a postage stamp was equivalent to a poll tax. Stamps are like 55 cents. Is it? Maybe. Some people might not have it. I get it. So how do you vote for mail? You want to request your mail-in ballot early. Like I said, you want to go on the website, request that mail-in application. You can also request it online. Do it early. Fill out your application completely and submit your request to your local election office. You in Georgia, you should request your ballot. I think the last day to request it is like October the 30th, 2020. So tomorrow. And when you turn your ballot in, it must be received by Tuesday, November the 3rd, 7 p.m. You can also return your ballot in person. And as we were saying, there's several ballot boxes where you can drop your mail-in ballot in. Make sure that it is a valid mail-in box drop-off place. There have been some reports, some of you may have seen in California, where there is like a store. It's a Trump store, and people are taking their mail-in ballots to this store and dropping their mail-in ballots in. This is not cool. Take it to an official mail drop-in box to get your vote counted.
Guys, there's
to touch on that. In California, the Republicans in the state Republicans in California have actually admitted to putting out ballot boxes that look exactly like the ones that the towns have put out. So be very careful, and you can check, just like Stephen said, with your local election office. That's typically in your town hall, to see exactly where those are placed, and not, as Stephen said, to put it into, what was it? A store?
Yeah.
I'll say for myself, I've always just been afraid of those classic stories where you hear the mailman that collects a whole bunch of ballots in a bag and tosses it to the side. So if you are going to do it, make sure you do an early, secure location. But like Brett was saying, make sure you also check your state's laws. And Stephen was saying also check your state's laws, because recently the Supreme Court, they stated that they won't extend Wisconsin's deadline for the mail-in ballots. However, Pennsylvania, they will allow it for there. So you have to know what is your state current on what your state is allowing, but most importantly, just don't wait, just don't wait.
And lastly, just so everybody has a little bit of history for this, again, on the history, our expatriates, citizens of the United States who just have chosen to live abroad or are working, say, in our embassies or for private corporations, and our armed service personnel all vote by mail. And it has been proven time and again to be a valid, safe, and secure manner of voting. So if you are scared, obviously you can drop off your mail-in vote ballot in the ballot box, but also please have confidence in our system, because the U.S. Postal Service are run by civil servants who have dedicated their lives and their jobs to doing what we're asking them to do, deliver our ballots.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, when you just think about this, I will have to say that the Narrative Shift is a non-political organization. We do not endorse any candidate. We endorse values, and whatever our panelists say, it's their own views and their own thoughts. And so regardless of what side you're on, we all need you to go out and vote. That is the key thing. Regardless if you're going to do it online, by ballot, don't drop it off at a store. Okay, just don't do that. However, ballot through a ballot box, go stand in line, stay in line. But one of the things that just hit through this conversation so far is just the voter suppression. We had the young folks, Gen Z, on this past Tuesday, and they just had this. I told them I wasn't going to use the word anymore, but they had like this lit phrase that was, and I probably didn't even say that right. So, they said that right now. Okay, cool. They said that, the voter suppression has a new remix. And I was like, yeah, the voter suppression has a new remix. Shout out to my Gen Z folks out there, because, you taught us something Because when we think about the voter suppression, that is the reality in America. So what can voters do when they're told that they're not able to vote?
So hypothetically, I'm assuming that they're at the voting polls and they were told, well, you can't cast your vote today. Is that where we're going with this question, correct, Chelsea?
Yeah, I think we're just going with just all voter suppression as far as just, yes, we're at the polls. They say you can't vote.
Okay. The first thing you should do is ask for a provisional ballot. And different states have different, procedures when it comes to provisional ballots. So ask for a provisional ballot. In the state of Georgia, if you cast a provisional ballot, you have 3 days to resolve whatever issue that you're facing in order for your vote to count. And that's why a lot of people encourage early voting. So that way, if you do face any issues, you will have enough time to be able to face or to correct whatever it is that they are requesting that you have at the voting place.
And really quickly, one advice that when I was working on Obama's campaign, and just whenever you work on a campaign, one thing advice we always give to people is this: go on the Secretary of State or go on your website, make sure that you are registered to vote. If you can't, print it out. That way, when you get to the vote, to the polling place, if they say you can't register to vote or there's a discrepancy, you can actually say right here, hey, as of today, I already printed this out. I am registered, so I don't know what's going on, but let's get it. But you have your ID with you. But that's one piece of advice we give everybody. And also, one resource that you can always use is if you have, like, let's just say President Joe Biden's campaign, if he's in your area or you have these these offices, a lot of times they have the resources to be able to check to see if you are registered to vote. So don't be afraid to go into these campaign offices also and say, hey, I just want to make sure I'm registered, because they have the resources there where they could check for you, boom, boom, and you're good to go. And then if you're not, they can register you right there and you're good to go.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like I would say the first step is to make sure you're even at the right polling place. So before even going to vote, check the website, make sure that you are on the right polling place, make you a plan for election day. Myself personally, I'm waiting until election day because I just I don't see it any other way. And so I'm making the plan. I'm bringing me a lawn chair. I am going to sit.
You have your mask.
I
the mask and going in, but I'm registered. I already know where I'm going at and what I'm going to do when I get there.
I love it. And if you voted early, just know that we appreciate your vote. If you're waiting until the day of, know that you have to stay in line. And guys, guess what? The last day to vote is next Tuesday. You can vote now. You can vote every day up to that point. Just make sure you cast your vote. And then also, if you are casting your vote, go ahead and put your picture up and hashtag the narrative shift, because that's what's coming. There's going to be a shift in the narrative, and it's going to happen this Tuesday. So when we think about just that aspect of it, when we think about just, what to wear, what not to wear, the do's and the don'ts of Tuesday, can you share just a little bit of that knowledge, just so that people are aware of what to expect?
Okay, so of course the obvious, you don't want to wear anything that is supporting a candidate, because campaigning a certain amount of feet, for example, in some places you cannot place any campaigning signs 25 feet from a polling place. So that is an absolute no-no.
Definitely. Y'all, that's in the background. Sorry, I'm just gonna go ahead and shout her out. Hey, Journey.
That's my daughter.
All right, y'all. What were you about to say, Steve?
Oh, I was gonna say, just following up with Hermes. Yeah, there is a dress code, and that dress code is basically you need to first check with your state, with everything, with all of these things. Check with your state first. But like Hermes was saying, no MAGA hats, no Joe 2020 t-shirts. There are some things that are kind of on the line where they are not necessarily political statements, but they may be seen as political. Things like BLM or something supporting the Me Too movement. Not necessarily a political statement, but if there is something on your ballot that has to do with some type of policy, dealing with something with that, it could be considered as a political statement. So you want to stay away from those. The easiest thing that I would say, or the easiest way to think about it, is when you're getting dressed to go vote, if you got to think about it twice in the mirror once you look at yourself, then just change and wear something different.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I would say, while you're out there, we all have freedom of speech and the whole nine, but the best power you can have is going in the booth to go vote. So I would say, just out of caution, just be careful even the conversations you have with the people around you, because you don't know what they're voting, if they align with yours or not. So, and you just want to be careful. So, hey, make every other conversation about the weather or anything else, but leave that off the board. Go and vote and have a good day. So,
It's kind of like when you go to Thanksgiving or any kind of major holiday party, we don't talk about politics or religion in the voting lines. I think something else to be very aware about is what is going on around you at the polls. If there are people with any kind of signs inside a polling place or right outside the polling place, I know in Massachusetts, I believe it's at least 150 feet from any polling place, that you need to, you should be taking photos, and you should be telling the poll workers. There are poll watchers at every single poll. These people have been trained by the local election board. They are nonpartisan, meaning they're not there to enforce one side or the other. They're there to enforce your right to vote. They are there to ensure your right to vote, and that is it. Please inform them if there's a television up and one of the candidates is giving a speech. That's not allowed. If there is a big banner somewhere in a polling place, because a lot of these polling places are in schools, mine's in the senior citizen center, someone might have left something up from a rally a couple of days earlier. Take a photo, inform the poll worker, so that those small things can be changed. If you are given a hard time about those things, you then take a photo. Almost everyone has a camera these days. If you don't, no worries. Your testimony or your statement should be enough. You immediately call your election board. And again, that should be at town hall or your local government seat. And you inform them that this is going on at this polling place, and that is technically illegal. And we want that to be removed. We want our polling places to be a safe space for everyone involved. We fought for the right to vote for so many people. Actually, I think women are over 50% of the US now. So over 50% of our population, we fought for our rights to vote. We need to ensure that they are protected.
Not only that, but, and I know I'm not a lawyer, but I want, from the narrative shift perspective, we understand that right now the world is heavy. It's really, really heavy. There's a lot going on. If you see something, say something. If you see intimidation, say something. Do not be afraid to take out your camera and make sure that you're taping things, making sure that you're using your local officials there to say what you need to say and do what you need to do to protect your loved ones that are in line and anyone else around. And so if you see something, say something. There's from the narrative shift.
I want to add to that as well, really quickly. Another perspective, I know we talk about the voters, but also if you are working for a campaign, make sure you understand that election day is very important, not only for you, but also for the candidate, because that's who you are representing. So it is important that like we said, the distance guidelines, that what properties that you can go on, that you cannot go on. Some properties are private property. They don't want any type of solicitation on there. So make sure that before you even go out to do all of that, you know that those areas have been cleared. You know what areas you can put your signage, what areas you cannot put your signage for your candidates. Understand and do never ever put the signage in the mailbox. If you put it in the mailbox, that is federal property and that is a felony. That you cannot do that. And and if somebody takes a picture of that, they could send it to the Board of Elections, and that could disqualify or make your candidate and put your candidate in some hot fire. So just from another perspective, if you are representing and you are out there on a hot day with water, make sure that you are also abiding by the guidelines of the candidate you are representing.
And guys, this is just nothing but knowledge. It's nothing but facts tonight. And you know, just as we try to wrap up, there's one important question that we must ask this panel while we have them together. Many people have made mistakes in our life. People have fallen. They have had felony records. However, their situation, they believe that they can't vote. Can you set this record straight? Are felonies excluded from voting?
And the answer to that, it depends. First, it depends on what state you're talking about. So generally, most states reinstate a felon's right to vote upon completion of their sentence. Some take it a bit further, such as Georgia, Texas, and Louisiana, that says upon completion of your sentence, probation, and or parole fees. And then your right to vote will be reinstated. Some states such as Delaware, let me go back. Some states such as Vermont, Maine, and DC, felons, they don't lose their right to vote at all. As a matter of fact, in Vermont, you can be incarcerated and you can still vote. Mm-hmm. However, in Florida and Delaware, they have a more restrictive law. So if a felon has committed certain types of crimes, such as sexual offenses, murder, in Florida, they would have to ask their governor for permission to be able to vote. However, in Delaware, you're permanently disenfranchised. So if you commit murder or a sexual offense, you're permanently disenfranchised. Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to note that the U.S. has a patchwork for these laws. In Germany and Norway, you never lose your right to vote, ever. My personal belief is that we should strive to get to that point. But a lot of states, you have to look at the felony laws. Unfortunately, felonies can be something as small as disorderly conduct. You just have a fight with a friend in a park. And if you're charged and convicted of that, in some jurisdictions, again, some areas, some states, you could be a felon and lose your right to vote. And so when we, again, go circling all the way back to that second question you asked, Chelsea, why is it important to vote? It's important to vote because we're looking at a very large percentage. Something like 5% of our population have felony records. That's a huge amount of people. And just like Hermes stated, in some areas, there are laws that prohibit a person with a felony record from voting. You can take Florida, for example. There was actually a huge movement and a great success in reinstating former felons from to be able to vote. The legislature clarified the law to include payment of probation fees. And maybe a lot of you have heard that a lot of money has been pouring into Florida. And that is in a direct effort to clear the probation fees for most of these felons. And just as a kind of mirror into this, most felons only owe about $1,500, which some of us can pay no problem, and others take 30 years to pay off. So we really need to look at those restrictions that have been put on voters. Not only are we adding a poll tax possibly back into our voting rights, but we're also limiting our voting rights in certain jurisdictions. So every time we vote, just like Hermes had stated earlier, find the person or the candidate that really reflects your values and what you want for our society at large, and that's who you vote for, and vote for them every time.
And also really quickly, for the we have to remember for our brothers and sisters that are in jail that have not even been to trial yet. A lot of times, a lot of them still have their right to still vote, and they still retain it. They just don't think they do because they think they're in jail. So I've visited the jails, and you can, whoever you are out there, you can make the impact of getting with campaign or whoever is somewhere local and going to the jail, of course, more than one person, but going to the jails and actually signing up people to vote. And you will be surprised how many people don't know that they still have the right to vote. So, you can make that little impact, but also, spread that around. Just because you're in that situation, it doesn't stop you,
And we are talking about convicted felons, right?
Convicted,
People who have gone all the way through to a jury verdict or a bench for a judge verdict and
Or a plea.
sentenced.
Yeah, not just charged with the felony.
Right.
And sometimes that can take anywhere between a year to 10 years to be convicted. And think of how many elections you've missed during that time.
Right.
And I want to say to all of our folks out there that have fallen and made mistakes, you are not your mistake. Your vote still counts. Do you understand me? Check it out. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you understand that, guess what? You can still, make sure that you are having the impact on society and come out strong and make sure that you are doing everything that is in your power to help the next generation and our world right now. So
Chelsea, to go off of that, someone who I think very highly of, my uncle, who happens to also be an attorney or was, he likes to say that he doesn't know of a single angel on this earth. Therefore, not a single person on this earth is perfect.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And that is what's powerful, y'all. The knowledge on this panel has been just powerful tonight. And so as we wrap up, as we have already had so many wise words, I would love to hear from each and every one of you. What wisdom do you have and words of wisdom that you can give to America right now as it relates to voting and this crucial election on Tuesday?
I would say do your homework. Look up your ballots before polling. Make your decision based on your own independent research. When you do that, you can bring a cheat sheet with you to the polling place. Now, you can't take your phone out and use that as a cheat sheet, but it is okay for you to bring your own cheat sheet with you to write down everything that you are planning on, everyone that you are planning on voting for, the initiatives that you are planning on accepting. We're not robots, so don't vote as one. Just think. Also, I just want to say it's very important to work the polls. There's been a record number of first-time voters who may be intimidated by this process. They're afraid to ask questions, especially if they are at wrong locations. So we need to be there to assist. We need that representation. My dad was telling me a story how he used to ride with my grandfather around taking people to vote. You can do something like that, picking up elders and picking up people that may not be able to make it to the polls and dropping them off. I think my dad also drives like the church van to get all the church folks to make sure they can make it out there and vote. The presidential election only comes around every 4 years, so make sure you're making a decision that you've actually pondered on for a moment. Think. That's my 2 cents.
I love
it. And I just want to add on to Steve. And of course, you guys are not going to be able to see this, but for my county, this is a sample ballot. So I want to tie in what Steve said to this. Online, I know we're on social media quite a bit. There's a lot of misinformation on social media. Even campaigns, there's some candidates that can afford to campaign, and there are some that don't, for whatever reason it is. So for example, in my state, there's 3 candidates that for Senate that campaign very heavily. So if you didn't check your sample ballot, you would have missed over 10 other individuals that are listed on the same ballot. So you always want to do your own individual research. It's okay to talk to mom. It's okay to talk to dad. It's okay to talk to your friends, but do not rely on what people are saying on social media. There's a lot of political analysts on social media. That doesn't mean that the information that they're providing is true. Do your own fact checking, okay? Another thing, there's proposed constitutional amendments on your ballot. And I know that, sometimes you may have questions. What does this mean? So in preparation, look it up. Now, if you get to the polling place and you still confused, it's okay. Take your time. Don't rush. I know you may feel intimidated because the line is wrapped around the corner. It is okay. Still take your time because you only get to vote during this general election once, not twice. There's no do-overs. So take your time.
Awesome. Take your time. I love it.
And I'll throw in there really quickly. It is important for people to vote, but also know that even more important than voting is the action you take after you vote. And that's really getting involved and getting in the nitty-gritty of, again, your state and local governments and what goes on around you. Know that you are an agent of change. Ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things all the time. So if you have that itch where you want to get in government or politics and make things happen and run for election, go for it. Do it. Normal people do it all the time and make great changes. And I see it all the time. And lastly, just want to share a few years ago, Joseph Lowery, who was known as the godfather of the civil rights, like he was with the Martin Luther Kings, everybody. And I was talking with him and he said, no matter what, make sure you tell people to vote. To vote. And I just always thought it was very powerful that somebody that old age, that's their mantra, is for people to get out and vote, because it's very important. That is who you are, and that puts your stamp in the country and the world, and that's your voice. So get out and vote.
I love it.
And I know that everyone is tired. I mean, we have COVID, we have, work from home, parents who have stay-at-home kids, and you have about 50 million things to do and get done. And we all recognize that. We're all living it together. But just like all of the panelists have said tonight, if you don't do your homework, you're walking in blind. And we have fought for our rights to vote for well over 200 plus years. And because of what is some of the restrictions that have come into place recently, we don't want to lose ground. We want to gain ground. And we can only do that by voting. We can only be doing that when we are voting intelligently. That means visiting all of the candidates' websites, calling the candidates' headquarters to understand what their viewpoints are. And while we all recognize that this is tiring work and that election fall has now turned into election 3 years or election 10 years, you do have more time. You just have to schedule it for yourself. And if we don't do it, then no one's going to do it for us. So make sure you take care of you, but also we have to make sure that we take care of everybody else as well. So be educated, go out and vote. And
yeah, your vote counts, guys. Your vote counts. Panelists, I am just so thankful. Thank you for just the moment of this knowledge that you spoke. Seriously, you all just had so much knowledge today, so many facts today. We are not one of those folks that are on social media that are just putting out a whole bunch of craziness. We are putting out facts, guys, from actual accountable people that know what they're talking about. So thank you, guys, for everything that you all have done. Guys, just here at the Narrative Shift, we have ran 8 panels. This is our 8th panel, guys. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the last almost 30 days, we have been on live, and you all have been right here with us. And so I appreciate it as the founder of the Narrative Shift. I appreciate it from our team. Our team is backstage and all around this world, just, chiming in, and they thank you, because guess what? Our motto is that we're going to change one mind at a time. And as long as we change one, and one more, and one more, and one more, then guess what? We can change the world. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You guys, we are not a political organization. We will be around for a very long time. We have campaigns coming up in December talking about mental health. We have campaigns around financial stability. We have campaigns around protection as it relates to just laws and we also have campaigns about education. And so as we continue on, we hope that you continue on this journey with us. Guys, this is the Crucial 30, and we are the Narrative Shift. Until next time, make sure you go out and you vote. See you soon.
The future is unpredictable unless you get to choose it. We often lose sight of that power and forget to use it, blinded by all the confusion and media illusions, politics and politricks. They be playing horse and riding us like the elephants. Saddle us right up to the polls for elections, where the lesser of two evils seems to be the only selection. Before you punch your selection, be mindful of the lives lost at the cost of this future election. What if Ahmad could jog to his local polling place? Remember to go out and vote just for his name's sake and for every person those officers kill, because November 3rd is not just election day, but it's the day we shift the narrative. Be firm in your decision. Make it plain and make it clear. Black lives matter, but too many black votes is a fear that matters to them. 18 or older, savages or thugs, your right to vote is just as valid as any of the rest of us, from the blocks to the voting booths. It's time we teach the power of voting to the homies and to the youth. Damn they debates, forget they disputes. America won't be great again as long as systematic racism resides under her roof. Whether our hands are up or bound, white supremacy never stands down. It's always on standby. So we gotta stand up, band together, and realize that there has always been less of them and more of us. This time is crucial. Get registered in your communities and become more aware of your local elected officials. Too often we complain and lack luster when it comes to the resolve of real issues, because the power to create change begins with the change in you. Research it, learn, vote, connect, researching and learning about who you're voting for before electing them. No more blind leading the blind. The new leader of this free world is left for you to decide. Go, vote, now.
It's the Crucial 30. Vote. I know you can do it.